On the arms, I have gone ahead and added the burlap. You can see that right there. Using the exact same procedures that we used on the back. Cut around the poles, and then we stapled the burlap on, and then folded it over and stapled it again. And I will take you around and show you the back side. Here you can see where the burlap has come through around this pole, and also on the bottom through this pole. And you can also see why we had to leave these tails unattached. If we'd have gone ahead and tacked these down, it would have been impossible to get this burlap through. Now we're going to have to keep these disconnected until we're all done with the inside arm. But what I might do is, I find sometimes it's helpful if I just put one tack in here temporarily while I am padding and quilting the inside arm. It helps me to define exactly how much padding I want and what kind of shape I'm getting. Then we'll have to go and we'll have to detach the temporary tacks that we put in there, or staples, and we'll have to get our final cover fabric through here as well. If these poles were wooden, like I've talked about on other chairs, we would have been able to pull this up and we would have been able to tack here, and that would have also allowed us to tack our burlap here, and it would still given us room to get our cover fabric through. But since that's not the case on this chair, this is how we work around that. I have gone ahead and applied the burlap to the inside wings and pulled it through and tacked it on the back temporarily. Here's where I pulled it through, and I just put about 3 tacks in here, in the middle and on the edge. Pulled it tight, just temporary, just long enough so that I know where my padding is going to put us. And as I mentioned before, I also went ahead and I pulled these tails on these webbings, and I also gave them a temporary tack right in the middle. So now we'll go ahead and we will put on the horsehair. Well, we're just finishing up the quilting of the horsehair on the inside arms and inside wings. I'm just going through and I'm just tucking this under and tacking it along the edge. It's the same procedure that I demonstrated along the crest rail in the back. I did not have to turn this chair on its side to put the horsehair padding on the inside wings and arms. We're only using a small amount of hair here, and it tends to stand up, and it's not going to fall over when you're only using a small amount. We've used about 1.25 pounds on these inside pieces, evenly distributed. Quilted it down just as I've demonstrated in the past, and just going along, tacking this, and pretty much done there. So we're ready for a layer of cotton and a muslin cover, and then we can start working on our final cover fabric. Okay, we've got 1 layer of cotton that we're going to be putting on here. I like to tack this down along the edges. Kind of helps hold everything in place until we get the muslin cover put on here. Now you'll notice I'm staying just behind this double welt cord. And that's because when we put our cover on and we pull it tight, it's going to want to pull this cotton over the top of it. And we want to avoid anything, any padding coming over the top and creating lumps. So the main goal is to try to keep everything nice and smooth. And I tapered this around the top of the arm. So a lot of these places we can't get into and tack, so we'll just have to kind of deal with that as we go along. I will be doing the same procedure on the opposite arm. We will cover this with the muslin and then we'll move on to the inside. Now you can see where I've come through in the back of the chair, giving myself enough to get my hand on that good and snug. Okay, now that we have the arms padded and ready for the muslin, I'm going to demonstrate to you how you should measure out for your muslin. You want to make sure that you measure the widest area, both front to back and top to bottom. You're going to want to take a flexible ruler, pass it through the back of the chair so you have enough to get a good firm grip on that. And then you're going to want to come around to the widest point. In this particular chair, it's going to be down here at the bottom. So we're going to want to measure all the way around that and give us a good amount to grab. And I'm going to also do the same thing, top to bottom. Come through your chair and then come around the top and give yourself enough to grab. It's important that you have enough fabric to get a nice grip. Because we don't want to be pulling it with our fingertips. That tends to make little dips in the padding. So if we can grab with the full width of our hand and we can get a broader grip on that, we can get a smoother cover. I have got the muslin put on the arms. As you can see, we've pulled it down nice and tight across the front. Here's the front arm. No puckers or wrinkles going across the front. It's okay to have a few, as you can see here. In this area here, as long as these folds don't come up over into here. If you have a few, it's probably not really going to matter much because we're still going to have a layer of cotton over this again before we put our final fabric on. But I just like to be mindful of that as I go along. And I try to keep things as smooth and wrinkle and pucker free as possible. Of course, I'm not able to pull these as tight as I would like to because we have to leave it open in the back of the chair and along the base of the seat to be able to put our final cover fabric through there. And we'll have to go back and we'll have to tighten that all up after the cover fabric is on. It makes it a little more difficult. It makes it so that you have to think ahead a little more and hope that you have enough padding right where you want it. Worst case scenario, you may have to go back and add some. So you can pull those temporarily and tighten it up if you'd like to, just to make sure everything looks good to avoid going back later. The next step will be to put the muslin on the wings. And then we're going to be about ready to start putting some cover fabric on this. And here we are with the wings packed with the cotton and a layer of muslin. It's just the same situation as on the arms. We're unable to pull those completely tight, especially along the back, because we have to leave that open for the final cover fabric. Would have been nice if I could have pulled them nice and tight and gotten everything perfectly smooth and wrinkle free, but just not going to happen on this chair. It's just not designed that way. So now the exciting part can happen. We can start putting on the cover fabric and this will start looking like a finished chair.